In 2016, the Ultraman franchise entered its 50th anniversary. Following 2015's Ultraman X, the new generation era looked like it was going to be continuing steadily, and all eyes were on this upcoming season, literally. To start off the year and the anniversary celebration, Tsuburaya released a video in January that reflected on their Ultraman history up until that point, looking forward to the future, literally, with a tease for the eyes of the new Ultraman that year and a question for what's next. Apparently that question would not be answered for some time because, as far as I can tell, there wasn't a trademark leak for this season. There was one for Ultraman X the year before and for Geed the year after, but I can't find anything from 2016, so unless all the big news sites forgot to cover this or all traces of it were wiped off the internet, nothing new came up regarding the new Ultraman until late April, where its silhouette just got leaked. As you can see, the next Ultraman has an extremely unique silhouette with a lot of jagged lines and edges, and even a completely different set of eyes from the official teaser. Oops. Yeah, this was a fake, but the nice thing is that not long after this, Tsuburaya just released all the official info for the upcoming Ultraman Orb. Ultraman-based card gimmicks were making a comeback with the game-changing twist of being used by Orb to fuse two Ultramen together and create a totally new power set. His base form would fuse the original Ultraman and Ultraman Tiga to pay tribute to the beginning of the franchise and its Heisei era respectively, completely changing the landscape of tokusatsu anniversaries. From there, official videos gave detailed looks at Orb's three main forms, while magazines revealed the look of Kamen Rider Denno's Kai as the main character, Kai with a G. Story details, such as Gai's debut in the first episode, would be announced later, alongside the supporting cast of the show. With all the main characters now revealed, they would make an appearance at the 2016 Tokyo Toy Festival alongside the announcement for the show's theme song, while new trailers provided the first look at the season itself. At the same time, a leak from Amazon would reveal that another Ultraman Orb project was already underway, but the origin of this information and the saga it would leave was unknown at the time. On July 2nd, a special preview aired for Orb, marking the end of the new Ultraman Retsudan, the franchise's anthology series that had been running for over a decade, as part of the 50th anniversary celebration to mark Orb as a distinct individual story. On July 9th, a week later, Ultraman Orb's televised story began, and from there it kinda just exploded. What I found really interesting about Orb compared to my prior and current experiences with Ultraman at the time was that it wasn't an origin story. Gai is already Orb when he appears in the flashback at the beginning of the show, and then he's very nonchalant about the first transformation of the season, but instead of taking away from the uniqueness of the big rubber men, it makes everything more impactful, and it's thanks to the SSB supporting characters. The audience has this unique look into the expansive 50-year-old world of Ultraman that's different from like, hey, time to learn about all the Ultramen with our main character. Nah, he already knows about everything, and we're sort of just trying to figure out everything on our own with a different set of characters that are doing the same thing. I think it's one of the most unique aspects of the season because at times, Gai sort of doesn't feel like the main character because we've usually got this filter of the SSP for a lot of his actions, and I think it really worked. As an overall organization, they're a fantastic cast for me, as I really loved seeing their reactions to all this crazy crap compared to Gai's lack of reaction to it. They also felt like a really grounded group of characters, as there are a few jokes regarding mean comments that demand some actual footage of Ultraman, Naomi doing odd jobs to fund the whole thing, and even a disapproving relative.
The search of something.
They worked amazingly together to create this cozy, happy atmosphere when we were in their base, amplifying all the alien Ultraman elements like I mentioned earlier. Now when you look at them individually, they're alright. I don't really think much of the two dudes. I really love the one Camera Dudes episode with the fake orb, but the other one, I think there was something about him liking robots, and I can seriously relate to that, but that's kind of it. I don't even remember their names. We look it up. Holy crap, it's Kamen Rider Shin and Winger. Yeah, I don't know. By no means do I hate these two, but I can't really find myself to love them as characters because there's not a lot to them. Naomi is obviously the best of this trio, but it's maybe a bit unfair because she gets the most focus, but I did think her role was very interesting. I think her Orb Origin dreams were a really neat and relatable addition since it added this great mystery to the season and Gai's past. I think she was perfectly characterized as this klutz just pursuing her hobby and her budding friendship, romance, however you interpret the relationship with Gai, was also pretty great. I really just prefer the SSP as an overall group going on adventures together and learning about the expansive universe they're a part of, and it makes this a great Ultraman season for newcomers or just a great way to expand the little bit of knowledge you have, like it was for me. The only other side character in the show is Naomi's uncle, or just the uncle, as I will refer to him for the rest of the video, and he's kind of similar to the Kamen Rider and Shin in that there's not a lot to him, but unlike those two, he's a boomer, and that's just a lot of fun. He's got so much charisma in his scenes, and it's always like this perfect balance of being really funny and kind of badass. I thoroughly enjoyed the gag where the other characters kept thinking he was Orb because he always just randomly disappeared when Orb appeared, and then his focus episode kind of destroyed that, but showed that he could still be a hero in his own way. Whereas SSP is at its best as an overall group, I think the uncle shines best when we ignore he's part of the VTL, which is very bad. It's just for most of the show, all we see of VTL is the occasional quarantine of areas or the uncle. And this actually made the uncle more fun as a character, but it was also a fun trope subversion by having our main Ultraman team be this group of amateurs while the bigger corporation that we usually get is just in the background. But then the show tries to make VTL important and it falls really flat. Over halfway into the season, they actually start doing things, and by doing things I mean they're trying to kill Orb when there is a big monster right there. Like, I get there was the whole thing with Orb attacking a pilot, but aren't you guys supposed to be attacking the monsters? There's a big monster. No, we'll attack the Ultraman. And then at the end of the show, oops, now they're super important again because they have Juggles in a vault. Suddenly now we see their base, and their base is important. They don't acknowledge the base until the finale of the show. I think it would have been interesting if Jetta or Shin was an intern at VTL, so we sort of got peeks into the organization as the show goes on, at least show their base early on. Right now, VTL is just definitely the worst part of the show. There's too much they try to do for them with the minimal amount of setup. Of the not Gai and Juggler characters of the show, the supporting hero cast works very well. Individually they're alright, but as an overall group they're so much fun and interact perfectly with each other, which is sort of an element of this entire show that I really like, but I'll get to that later. So, I'm sorry if that beginning segment came across as being overly negative because, to tell the truth, I really love Ultraman Orb, and that's largely thanks to its two main characters, Gai Kurenai. My phone went off. And that's thanks to its two main characters, Gai Kurenai and Jugglus Juggler. Let's start with Gai. And Gai is such a badass! His introduction in this season is literally just casually walking out of a freezer and not acknowledging it at all. And then he's Superman or something, I don't know, flying around, saving people, but it's super awesome. And then his personality is absolutely amazing as a pre-established Ultraman. He has such a different vibe for a Toku protagonist because he acts so calm and experienced in nearly every situation, and very simply, I had fun watching that. It was also a nice juxtaposition against the inexperienced SSP and amplified the aspects of both of these character groups, but it also does a great job at humanizing Gai. I loved the humor when Gai was around the SSP, whether he was trying to keep his identity as Orb a secret, or just messing around while cooking, or his poor popsicle gets scorched by a monster. I think it's really cool that Gai's story plays off of the fact he's a pre-established Ultraman, and instead of being a typical origin story where he learns the ropes of being an Ultra, it's an Orb origin story where he rediscovers his true power, but I'll get to that later. Also, I don't know how they did it, but somehow this show turns a harmonica into a badass instrument? I always thought harmonicas were sort of just an instrument, but Gai's Orbonica theme is simply beautiful. Actually, I've had a harmonica, like a normal one, for a while, and I kind of want to try to learn the Orb theme on it because it's just really cool. Haha, more on that later. Always with light, there must be dark, and the dark in this season is in a form unlike any other, Jugglus Juggler, aka the best character in Ultraman. For the most part, it's because he's just like Gai, but so much cooler and badass. For starters, his whole motivation in the show is this perfect blend of intrigue and pettiness. His plan in the beginning is really mysterious. He's just summoning some monsters, absorbing some others, having a good old chuckle the whole time, simply building up his card collection, faking his own death. Until he can finally introduce Orb Origin. But then, what I think is great about this is he summons a literal world-destroying monster just to beat Gai's ass. He steals all of Gai's cards and then has arguably one of the greatest victory laughs in tokusatsu, and then he just harasses Gai afterwards about it. That's it. What a villain. And then Gai defeats the monster, obviously, but I love that this still plays into Juggler's plan because he's forced Gai's hand, and the only way to defeat the monster has been to accept his inner darkness and become exactly like Juggler. Juggler's story in this season is sort of just, how can I bully Gai Kurenai as much as possible? He's such a big troll about it, and it's so badass when he does it that it's amazing. Like, look at this shot. I love it. This is also why I don't really mind his redemption at the end of the show. Juggler's goals are never really exactly downright villainous. As I mentioned, the big world-eating monster was just to give Gai a good fight. He's still evil to the audience because he's putting innocent lives in danger, but the difference is that his goal isn't really to put those lives in danger, it's just to bait his old friend and corrupt him to the darkness. Gai breaks out of this darkness by acknowledging he's not perfect and everyone has light and dark within them, and he really wins back his old friend by having him do the same, having Juggler acknowledge that there's light within him because he saved Natasha. The build up to this moment in the season is fantastic. The following episodes after Gai acknowledges his inner darkness all deal with other characters also acknowledging their own inner shortcomings. The Blue Ribbon Girl, the cafe owner, even Naomi herself acknowledged that they have evils within them, but they just beat them back and move forward in the pursuit of light. Then it eventually all culminates with our season boss doing the same. The best part is that it doesn't undermine him as a villain because he just kind of becomes more of an anti-hero rather than a whole ass villain. The movie even expands on this, where the Dark Ring is said to go to the person with the most evil mind in the universe, and Juggler lost it when Gai defeated Zepandan, showing how early he was starting to return to the light. To bring this full circle, when he reclaims the Dark Ring in the movie, his Zepandan transformation into darkness gets retrofitted with the hero green screen background, even an Ultraman's rise, and it's so cool. Oh my god.
Ultraman Z Ultraman Orb predecessor Ultraman Geed 光の力お返しします。フュージョンお返します。
Aesthetically as well, Juggler's super cool looking monster design has this crescent moon scar that's like a butchered halfway there version of Orb's color timer, showing that he's really just an emotionally darkened version of Gai. In post-series content, the Geed crossover is one of my favorite tokusatsu movies ever, just because of this one moment between the two characters that solidifies them as eternal frenemies. The hero of light clad in leather, an agent of chaos clad in silk, forever locked in a beautiful dance that I could watch forever. I may have talked a lot more about Juggler here, but don't worry, I'll be talking more about him in the Zet review. Be sure to subscribe so you can see that as soon as it comes out. I mean, I really like Gai too. Yeah, Gai is great. But I especially enjoy him more when he's interacting with his boyfriend. They're boyfriends, right? No one's gonna try and deny that. I mean, look at them. Even their names are mirrors of each other. Gai Kurenai, Jugglus Juggler, Orb Juggling. Hey, wait a minute. So despite all of that, my favorite part of Orb is actually its aesthetics. Kinda, sorta. All the suits in this season certainly look great. If I had to rank the fusions in the show, it would look like this, I guess. The transformations make me much more fond of all of them though. The way the Orb Ring toy integrates itself into the visuals of the transformations is so satisfying. And then the jingles it makes are also amazing, both on their own, but also because they get extended and remixed into the background tracks of the season. How do you do that? They even do it for Juggler's Appended transformation. Oh my god, it's so cool. Anyways, my favorite suit in this show, but also my favorite part of this show overall, is Orb Origin, or as I sometimes call it, Origin. For starters, it just looks great, nice and simple. I go a bit into more detail in my ranking videos, so go watch that. The Orb Caliber, which is part of the form itself kind of, is like my second favorite tokusatsu weapon ever. It's just a big, cool sword with pretty colors that are tied to elemental powers. In the debut episode, it's even referred to as a Seiken, meaning somehow this ties into the lore of Kamen Rider Saber. Don't ask how it does. This is actually the Orbijiken Hikari. I need a tokusatsu character to wield the cross saber and the Orb Caliber while wearing a gamer driver. I just think that would be really new. Anyways, my absolute favorite part of Orb Origin is how it functions in the world of Ultraman Orb. I love this story of discovery this form represents, how Gai lost faith in himself, needing to borrow the lights of others. Eventually this causes him to fall to darkness, and after nearly repeating his past mistake, he comes to terms with his own flaws, allowing him to reclaim his light, his full power, his Orb Origin. The build up to Origin is insane. There are so many times where Juggler just bugs the hell out of Gai constantly for losing the original orb powers, but there's also the little bit about well, Orb Origin is the opening scene of the show, and it's not a tease like, ooh, they said Origin, or like they set up a scene and then kind of recreated the scene later on. No, the Orb Caliber is just right there, lighting up and everything. This is one of, if not the most satisfying tokusuit story payoff I have ever seen. And it doesn't stop there. In terms of seasonal Ultraman forms, Spatium Zephyrian fills in the slot of this season's base form, while Orb Origin fills in the slot of this season's final form, complete with a new weapon. But within the lore of the show, Origin is the base form, while Spatium Zephyrian is just another form, and the franchise acknowledges that. The opening for the season usually showed Spatium Zephyrian first because it's the base, but after Origin debuts, it changes and shows that form before the others, and it becomes the center of this cool last shot of the opening thingy. In the big new generation crossovers, Orb is always an Origin. The other one is always used as a, like, these two shows are crossing over and we have to use the show's base form, but other than that, they always use Origin. And then the transformation for Origin is him coming out of an orb, but it's also Gai's harmonica theme, and it's the background music. It's literally the living embodiment of Gai's badassery. Orb Origin is so cool. Ultraman Orb is just so cool, man. I love so much of this season. The core dynamic between the main characters is amazing. The interactions between the side characters is great, and the aesthetics are visually and conceptually amazing. And then the side content. This isn't part 1 of Orb and Juggler's story. It's part 6 of 10. It's past the halfway point. Before that, there's a whole story about how Gai gets the elements of the Orb Caliber. The Rizalka explosion scene in the show, and most famously, the Orb Origin Saga Amazon series that expands on the one flashback in the show. And it's a real origin story that shows how Gai learned to use the power of light, how Juggler fell to the darkness, and even has Origin at the end as a little reward. In the Geed movie, the beautiful Geed movie, Galactron, the super plot relevant one-off monster in Orb, gets a whole backstory. There's a whole race of them. We see their leader. Their leader is the main boss of the movie. What? How? Super you beautiful bastards. Just please keep doing what you're doing. I love it. All of this just adds to the story of the Orb show. Makes it feel like a living, breathing universe, multiverse, and combined with all of these little details, all of these amazing little details, the whole thing really comes together for me. Ultraman Orb, and by extension the Ultraman Orb Chronicle, is now my favorite Ultraman series. I guess I've really only seen Geed before this, and I still really like Geed, but Orb's a bit higher. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite tokusatsu seasons, and it's just really cool. I just really liked Orb. Be sure to let me know what you thought of Orb down in the comment section. And actually, so I liked Orb so much that one day online I found a really cheap listing for an Orb ring with all the cards. So I was like, all the cards in the show, I should get it. But stupid thomasjujube classic me didn't read the listing all the way, so the thing didn't come with no cards, which is the main reason I got it. So I just have an Orb ring without any cards. So funny thing, while I was working on this video, Premium Bandai announced an Ultra Replica Orb ring that is like a CSM for you Kamen Rider fans, or a memorial edition for, I guess, everything. And it comes with all the show cards. It comes with new cards, and it has Gai quotes, so you can recreate all the form transformations. It has a motion sensor that activates the toy when you do his pose. More Gai quotes, and it has all the background tracks, including the Orb Origin background music. And this was my first like really expensive toku toy. I beat my Orb ring. It is of no use to me. It does nothing except until this video. X8 son. Ultraman X8. Majin san. Ultra Woman Majin. Kai no chikara. Okai shimasu. Fusion up. Ultraman Judo. Nunu Muteki.